Hey folks, Coach Patrick here from Endurance Nation. Welcome to another weeknight coach chat with me, Coach Patrick, one of the co-founders of Endurance Nation, home of the world's largest online triathlon team, 2013 Ironman Tri-Club World Champions, and creators of the First Time Finish Guarantee. This week we'll be talking a little bit about race week. It is early May, or mid-May, I guess, depending on your perspective. And Ironman Texas is looming. It's this Saturday. I'll be heading down there to support the team. And I've been getting a lot of questions from people related to Ironman Texas and handling race week. And it really kind of brings to mind for me just how important race week is to you. I think things increase with importance the more relevant they become. So the closer we get to race day, the more relevant everything is for you. So all of a sudden, every workout matters. Whereas before, 6 weeks ago or 8 weeks ago, you weren't so worried about that swim. But this week, boy, you're really thinking about that swim now, aren't you? So we're trying to balance all that. So this week, that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to tell folks here in the chat room that the video has started. Just so folks know. And so let me talk a little bit about race week. There's a couple different elements about race week that are super important, and they're the hardest part about race week. Let me step back for a second. The hardest part about race week is that you have multiple things to get done, and you essentially have competing priorities. For a long time, over the course of the last 12 weeks, your life has been pretty simple. It's been pretty straightforward. Your goal has been to train. You've had a schedule to train. You've created conditions within your life to get that training done properly. And as a result, you've been able to kind of execute your week. Now, it may not be ideal, but you've been able to get a lot of stuff done on time. So the world, for a brief period of time, if you've managed to organize it well and struck a balance across your year, for this brief period of time, the world has shifted to where, well, pretty much everything kind of revolves around you. You're super important. Your training is super important. And it's okay to miss part of work or part of family time or whatever it is, or social time. We give up on other hobbies for a little bit. It's your training. It's all about your training. So in this last week, things get kind of hard because all of a sudden you've got this training importance. You've got this desire to continue training. But now you've got other competing priorities, right? You have to deal with logistics. You got to make sure you have all the equipment, all the things you need. You have to deal with travel. I'll take that outside of the logistical bubble because travel itself is a beast on its own, right? So you've got logistics and you've got travel, and then you've just got the stress of other people. For the first time in a while, all of a sudden you're no longer responsible for yourself. You're not worried about, does my bike have 110 PSI in the tires? Do I have enough bottles? Do I have money in my ID? Did I pack my phone for this bike ride? Do I have my fuel belt for my run? Now all of a sudden you're worried about, like, does Tina have enough food? Or if we're delayed, are we going to lose the kid's car seat? Am I able to get into the condo at 11 o'clock at night when I get into town? Yada, yada, yada. So all these things start to come into play. So you have a huge set of competing priorities. And ultimately what all of this does, and we'll talk more about this at the end, but ultimately what all of this does is it builds a level of stress that all of a sudden makes accomplishing even the smallest tasks a real challenge, right? All you want to do is swim for half an hour. 2 weeks ago, swimming for half an hour was easy. You were swimming for 75 minutes. Half an hour would be very easy. But now that you're dealing with the logistical stress, the travel stress, everything that kind of comes with dealing with race week, all of a sudden finding time for that swim is really, really hard. So our goal here with race week is to create the conditions whereby you can get done the training you need to get done. You can get the logistical and travel stuff organized in such a way that you arrive where you want to be on the time you want to be there. You have all the stuff you need when you get there. And ultimately, you've been able to keep that stress level low. And that's really what we're looking for. So not unlike race execution, there's a couple big picture things we can think about. First of all, understand that in race week, our top priority is getting you to the race venue and having you rested enough to race. So all the decisions that you're going to make over the course of this final week are really, really revolve around getting you to your race with all the stuff that you need in a position to race. That's it. Okay? So if you told me, for example, you couldn't train at all this week because you needed to do the former, get yourself to your race venue in one piece, ready to race and rested, then I would be okay with that. Okay? In other words, the logistical element of this week in many ways outweighs your training. You know, for a lot of people, especially age groupers who haven't had the best training or have had some hiccups this last week when they're tapering, especially first timers, it's really hard. You want to do one more workout. Just want to be sure that wetsuit fits right. You want to make sure the bike wheels turn okay, etc. You know, ideally you started a lot of that stuff already, so you're not in that position now, and you don't have that same pressure. You know, we want you to show up as rested as possible on race day, and there is no workout that can make you more rested than not working out. Think about that for a second. Also, I want you to understand that the stress related to travel and logistics and last-minute shopping or whatever can sometimes equal, from like a cortisol level in terms of how your body experiences stress, a hard workout. So sometimes just traveling, you know, like in our training plans, we have a travel day designated. On that travel day for an Ironman, say typically a Wednesday, there's really no workout scheduled. Everything is optional. Because why? Because traveling itself is so hard. I'm not going to make you get up at 3 a.m. to get a workout in, or when you get there at 8 p.m., assemble your bike so you can take it out for 20 minutes. It's just not worth it. Okay? They kind of have to balance all that out. So now that we know the desired end state, we understand sort of the different nature, you know, the competing element nature of what it means to be juggling different priorities, especially at a time when you are least prepared and ready to deal with them, especially coming off of your sort of life sabbatical where you've just been training. Now it's a function of my cat's attacking the computer. Daisy, that's not okay. Hold on, I know Daisy Cat. Sorry about that. There goes Daisy Cat. Here's how I recommend you sort of handle race week. Okay, number one, working yourself backwards. Understand that the most important thing you can do is have all of your gear. So we have checklists on the team, but you can also create your own or find your own on the internet. You want to make sure you have all the equipment you need for race day. It's not that different than dealing with the night before you're setting out your transition bags. Let everything out, you know, your garage floor, someplace big. And you're just going to put everything down in a space where you can see it. So you can see the wetsuit and the goggles and the anti-fogging spray and the neoprene cap or something and the swim speed suit if you have one of those. Whatever else you're going to bring for swimming. And then in the bike pot, you've got your tri kit, but you also have your bike shoes and your helmet. You've got all of the bike tools that you want to bring. You got your pump, you got your spare tools, all that stuff. So all these things you start lining up in big piles. And then you're going to, once you can see everything and you've got a visual check on that it's all okay, then you can box it up. What you don't want to do is have a big box or a big bag and just walk around and just start throwing stuff in that bag. Because you're going to get halfway through that exercise and you're going to say, did I put my pedal wrench in there? You know, was my torque wrench in there? What's that bike pump again? Is my speed suit in the bag or not in the bag? You can't have anyone else look for you because to your significant other or anyone who's helping you, a speed suit looks just like a pair of spandex, looks just like a pair of compression socks, looks just like, I don't know, whatever the hell else you have that's in Lycra. But they're not going to know what it is. You have to take it all apart again. So don't do that. Do yourself a favor, lay it all out, and then pack it up. So you've got it all done. If you have a checklist, even better. Just write things off as you go. All right? We're going to have all of our equipment together. And if you need to do shopping, ideally do it now. Before you leave, support your local stores. Before you get to the race venue, and everything is far more expensive inside the town, right? You may also want to take a moment and find other bike shops or resources in the area before you leave, so you're not, you know, standing in a 60-person line looking at a 3-hour wait and trying to use your smartphone to find another bike shop. If you know beforehand, that'd be awesome, right? So that's one. The next thing is all the travel arrangements. There's great web services like TripIt, which allow you to forward all your itineraries and it organizes it for you. I personally have my assistant put everything into my calendar so that I've got, when I look at my Wednesday, I've got my flight number, my times, I've got directions, I've got hotel reservation or confirmation numbers and directions. All that stuff is in there, so I don't have any issues. I know where it all is. I can confirm it now. I'll be able to see it when I get there. I've got it all dialed in. If you are staying at a condo, you're going to want to make sure you have access to the keys with the after-hour key pickup, etc. Just kind of want to have all that done. All right. And one more element on the travel side of things. If you are traveling with your bicycle, that can be definitely stressful unto itself. And I definitely recommend that you get to the airport 2 hours before your flight takes off. Okay? Because I'm telling you, 2 hours, which means you'll probably get there like an hour and a half. And when it takes you 45 minutes, then you can still do your usual 45-minute dash to the airport. But traveling with a bike takes time. It's hard to get it in there. It's hard to get it into the airport. And you got to go through the process of paying for it, getting it checked, making sure it's all right. Some airports, depending on the size of your airport, may make you take it apart or take it yourself to a separate scanning area, whatever it is. So So definitely enough time to do that. And you definitely want to pack your bike, at least 24 hours before you're leaving. So if you're planning on flying on Wednesday, then your bike goes in the box on Tuesday morning. Do a Tuesday morning bike workout or something, and then after that bike workout, schedule the time to get it packed up. You don't want to be trying to pack your bike on the same day you're traveling with your bike. How do I know that? Well, because I've tried to do that. It doesn't work out so well, so don't do that, okay? So you've got all your logistical stuff from travel. You've got all of your equipment. The last thing you need is directions. If you're driving there, or if you're driving, from an airport to where you want to be, you really want to dial those things in. Nothing is worse than getting on the ground in a place and saying, well, my phone will solve this, or I'll use that handy tiny map from the rental car center, and you find out your phone has no batteries. You can't do it. One of the things I travel with now is a phone charger, one of those, cigarette lighter car chargers. A lot of cars now have USB ports, but I don't trust it. I've got my own inverter that I bring with me so that I can always have power in my rental car, and I'm good to go. All right, so you want to get all that stuff down there. So now we've talked about logistics, equipment, and we've talked about travel. So let's talk a little bit about the week. Working backwards from your race day, the goals are pretty simple. We want to have you feel good on the ground, and if we're lucky, make sure all your equipment works well. And if that works, then we want to make sure you have an opportunity to check out the course. So I'm working backwards in orders of priority, okay? So topmost priority is having you on the course with all your stuff. Which I think we've achieved already, right? Second thing, although maybe the airline gets in your way or an act of God with weather, the second thing is putting all your stuff together. So when you get on the ground, the first thing is not a workout. The first thing you want to do is make sure all your equipment has made it there with you. Now, I recommend unpacking your bike box and putting the bike back together. You want to know as soon as possible if something is not working or not right with your bicycle. If you get on Wednesday and you can put it together on Wednesday night, that means Thursday morning you can take it out for a ride, and if there's a problem, you can take it to a shop on Thursday morning. The sooner you know about that problem, the better. Okay, that's the top priority of business. You also want to make sure your run gears are your swim gears. Okay. So once we have your bike equipment assembled, etc., we've achieved the second objective, which is making sure all your equipment has arrived and is functional. Then the third thing to do in that order, so if all your stuff has arrived, yay, and you're rested, and then all your stuff is put back together again and it still works, yay. Then we move to the third level, which is, hey, it'd be nice to kind of recon the course. Now, in our mind, the most important thing you can recon is the bike. It's the biggest portion of your day. Running in Ironman is just running. There's no special part of the run you need to see, and odds are where you're staying is not that close to the actual run. So you may do some short pickups just to kind of stay loose, but ideally you're probably going to do some riding on the course. So in our ideal world, we have 2 days out, between 2 and 3 days out, we have a race preview ride. And ideally, you ride about between 20 and 30 miles, nothing super hard, maybe a couple efforts at goal race efforts, so you can see what your race effort, be it heart rate or watts, looks like on this portion of the course. And ideally, depending on your race, we do pre-race calls with all athletes. Depending on race, we've outlined a couple of key sections where that's most important for you to kind of check it out. So it will probably require a car and another driver, if possible, or if you don't have another driver, then you and a car and your bike, driving out, parking your car, doing the ride back to your car, and then coming back home. That's something you want to plan out ahead of time. You want to know where you want to go. You want to understand how long it's going to take you to get there. Map all that stuff out. If you're doing a course like Ironman Texas, it's one big bike loop. And since I want you to bike, mile 55 to mile 70 or 75, well, you got to get to mile 55. Well, that's like an hour and change of driving. So you want to map that out because you want to understand that. I don't want you to have just 2 hours and attempt to get out there and get back in time because you want time to ride your bike. So again, take the time, plan it out now, lay it all out for you. Understand what the minimum requirements are, you and all your equipment on the ground, to the best case scenario, which is you, all your equipment on the ground, all the equipment functioning, and an opportunity to recon the course. The other element about the week you should understand is that sometimes there's constraints to when you can recon certain parts of the course, particularly the swim. Some events have swim time, practice time allotted throughout the week. Other events only have 1 day, like Ironman Texas, just 1 day, Friday morning. I think between 8 and 10 or 7 and 9, you can test the swim, and that's it. So if you're anxious or you want to do that, then that's the only time that you have. You have to kind of budget your time accordingly to make sure that you can get to where you want to be. So again, make those decisions ahead of time, or at least be flexible enough to be able to handle those changes if that's what you want to do. Okay? So working your way through your week. On the ground, you've done your recon work. You've got that 20 to 30 mile bike ride with some pickups at Ironman effort or half Ironman effort, depending what race you're doing. Kind of explore things. You have a couple shakeout runs, and ideally at least one swim on the course to line up your targets, etc. Make sure you've got all your stuff. That's really it when you're on the ground. The rest of the time you're on the ground, I want you resting, I want your feet up, I want you hydrating, eating properly, etc. Before you depart, there's really no serious training that needs to be done this final week. And it's more about staying loose. Remember, you're in taper mode, and your body is still shedding fatigue. And the process of shedding fatigue is kind of messy. It's kind of awkward. It's achy. It's not smooth. And so there's really nothing in this last week that we want you to do to test your fitness. There's always that, that last weekend before people say, I just want to do one more 20-minute test, or I just want to push this last hour of my run to make sure I'm really, really ready. Like, whether or not you are really, really ready, the only thing that workout is going to do is help you accumulate more fatigue that you can't get rid of. Remember, the fatigue that you're trying to get rid of is not just from last week in your training plan, it's from the last 3 months of training that you've accumulated over time. And being sharp on race day is an art, and it takes more rest than work. So, always do a little bit less than you think. Always finish every session during race week feeling rested, and use that extra time during race week to focus mentally on all the elements of your race. I do a lot of visualization on race week, making sure you understand what it is you want to accomplish, how you want to do it, what the different scenarios are, what could possibly happen to you. Back in Ironman Texas in 2012, I got a flat tire. It was one of my first flat tires in a race. But thankfully, I had visualized in my head how I would handle a flat tire. Granted, this was my front tire, not my rear tire, which is odd. But I already knew in my head what I was going to do when it happened, and so I was ready to do it on race day. And so don't discount that element of your preparation as well. I recommend bringing a good book, planning to rent a couple of good movies, so you can just kind of chill out, keep your feet up, and focus in on yourself. This is kind of that last final push, making yourself ready. And it's hard because so much of being ready for the last 3 months has been all about exercise and sweat and work. And now in this final week, there's no amount of work that's going to make things better. It's about focus. It's about mental preparation. It's about logistics. That transition from the previous 3 months to this final week is a difficult one for many to make. But if you can master it, if you can be successful and show up on race day rested and stress-free and ready to have a great day, I can guarantee your race will be better than someone who's even fitter than you, who doesn't have all their eggs in the right places in the right basket. All right? Okay, that's my little talk on race week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys listening. A little crazy here with the cat hair and everything else. But super excited to help you out. I'm going to head over to the chat room here. Let's see here. Let's see if they've got questions. Hold on. Tonight we have Chris, Mr. Harbeck, good to see you. Derek, Carrie, and Laura are in the house. I know some people also watch this over on YouTube and our Google Plus page, which is very nice of you. That's youtube.com/Endurance Nation, or a Google Plus page, which has no meaningful address, I could tell you, but you'd have to search for Endurance Nation on Google Plus. But if you guys have questions for me, I would super duper appreciate it. And if you have questions to me, even just related to your regular training, that's also fine as well. I'm trying to think of some other scenarios that come up on race week. One of the biggest scenarios that comes up on race week that I see is people just being wicked stressed out about travel. So you got a connection, you get your bike on a plane, and then you got to get to another plane, and you only have an hour to do it. But your first flight was late by half an hour. Now you're stuck on this plane. Look, don't freak out. Your race is on Saturday, or your race is on Sunday. Today is Wednesday. The airlines will take care of you. The airlines do this all the time. There's nothing you can solve from row 37, seat C, by yelling at other people or trying to call a representative from your phone before you get off the plane instead of going to the kiosk or talking to a representative off the end of the plane. That's going to solve your problem. That's a lot of accumulated stress. And so most of the time, most athletes are kind of zen about it. They're all right. But a lot of times, significant others or travel partners, not so much. I've seen some pretty fired up travel partners on planes. So definitely communicate your sense of urgency or state of mind with your travel partner, so there's some synchronicity there, so you don't have to deal with like having a late flight in and of itself for me is stressful enough. Last thing I need is someone else yelling at me about the late flight that has nothing to do with me, and nothing that I can control. I can't stop that flight. I can't speed up this flight. I can't get someone on the phone right now to fix this flight. All I can do is get off this plane. So if that's the case with you, or that's your attitude towards it, then be ready. If you're someone who likes to get freaked out about that stuff, then I suggest you dial up the customer service representative number and have it ready on your phone for when you land, so you can deal with that as well. All right, that's definitely something that comes up a lot. And the other thing is food. I should mention that as well. Travel requires lots of food. You know, your engine's still burning, even though you're not training as much. You're gonna be pretty hungry, and it's very easy to just grab some really crap food off the side of the highway or at a gift shop. So, you know, do yourself a favor. Go to the local, you know, super nice organic store and buy lots of healthy snacks. Make sure you've got a water bottle so you can stay hydrated. You know, traveling with something like Noon is a great product to travel with that, you know, makes water flavored, got some electrolytes in there. It's a great travel product for you to kind of keep up your A game and make sure you arrive on site in a good place. Last thing you want to do is have a 4-hour flight that you thought you're going to get, you know, full food service on because, I don't know, you haven't flown since 2001 or something, and you get on the plane and they give you like half a cup of water and they give you like 2 cookies and you're about to, you know, chew your own arm off. That's a great way to start things the wrong way on race week. So we definitely want to avoid that as well. All right, Laura's got a question for me. Laura, thank you so much for your question. Let me read it here. Oh, this is a great question, Laura. Laura says, how should you modify race week if you are racing a half Ironman before an Ironman? Knowing that the half Ironman is not necessary to your AAA race, but it's still an important race. Should you or should you not go into taper mode? That's a great question, Laura. It's something that we do answer in the wiki, in the self-coaching guide, but it's definitely worth repeating here as well. If you're doing a half Ironman en route to an Ironman, or you're doing another event en route to a bigger event, generally we don't taper you for that first race because it's not a race we specifically trained you for. And by that I mean it's within the last 8 weeks before your AAA race. If you're doing a half Ironman in May and your Ironman is not until November, then sure, we'll train you for it and taper you for it just like it's its own race. But if they're in close proximity and it's just a training event as part of your mental or physical or logistical preparation for the big race, then we don't really taper you for it. So in the case of a half Ironman, in general, which falls on a Saturday or Sunday, in general we have you do your regular training through Wednesday, which includes the bike intervals and the brick run on Wednesday. Then we turn off Thursday and Friday. So normally you'd have a long run on Thursday. Your race will count as that long run effort for that week. So Thursday and Friday are pretty done. I recommend like an easy swim day. If you can get open water on Thursday, that's great. If you're racing Saturday, then Friday's off and you have your Saturday race. If you're racing Sunday, then you have one more day. Generally, it's a travel day on Friday. You can kind of stretch the legs out, whatever it is, maybe with a short bike and a short run, so 30-minute bike, 15-minute run. Then Saturday's off and you race. So we do taper for it, but in a very short and compressed way. One of the things that's tough about tapering is that shedding of fatigue, and then you're adding more fatigue. And what I've found over time is that if we were to taper you properly for this intermediate level race, which is not super important, it's actually that punches a bigger hole into your schedule. You're pretty fit right now, and if you're training for an Ironman, say, doing a half Ironman is not that costly to you. As you know, the cost goes up the more you run of the run and the harder you run of the run. But in general, that event itself is not so costly, such as to require a bigger taper. You know, I want you to still race that race properly, you know, good execution, half Ironman effort across the board, but I'm not worried about you tapering directly into that race over the course of a week or 10 days, say, because it just makes getting back into the regular training swing of things too much, and you've lost a bunch of workouts on the front end, and then you're also missing workouts on the back end, and you've punched a 3-week hole into your Ironman training cycle, and that is not, that is certainly not ideal. That's a great question, Laura. Thank you so much. Carrie or Chris, I don't know if either of you have questions tonight. I'd be happy to answer those as well. Oh, Chris, bam, hit me right up. Look at you, brother. Thank you. Chris says, never force that I got a spin ride on unknown roads or traffic. Too many taper week car and bike accidents when we are in new unknown territory. We can't recon the specific sections, it's not worth the risk to be posing with traffic everywhere. Add safety to the list of things to consider. Chris, as always, sage advice. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, just a couple, 2 weeks ago, some riders were struck and one died for a half Ironman. Riding on, on race day, that road is a race road. But before race day, it's a 2-lane highway where cars can go 65 miles an hour, and bikes are not typically allowed on that road. You have to be very, very mindful of that. If you're going to recon, if you're going to Ironman Texas, for example, the Woodlands Parkway out to where the bike course really starts, you ride the Woodlands Parkway. But it's very busy. There's a shoulder, but it's very busy, and there's construction. If you're going to ride on that road, then you want to be on that road early. You want to be on that road, between 7 and 8 a.m. You don't want to be on that road between 8 and 10 a.m. when it's super busy. Maybe you want to go in the middle of the day when traffic is lessened a bit, but you want to be very smart about how you choose where to ride and where you choose to ride. And above all else, you totally want to obey the traffic rules and safety rules. You don't, just like you wouldn't want some crazy person to come into your town and blow through stoplights and be disrespectful and everything, you also have to keep in mind the locals and what their expectations are and what this race means to them. And remember that ultimately you're an ambassador for not only cycling at that moment, perhaps, but also just for our sport in general. If you are wearing crazy clothes on Ironman race weekend, then anyone who sees you understands you're here for the Ironman. Last thing we want to do is leave a bad taste in people's mouths about our event and everything you can do. Our story as Ironman athletes is generally so positive, so inspiring. You can do a lot to be a good role model to those communities. I'm a super fan of that. Carrie's got no questions for us. No worries. I appreciate that. I just really want people to be mindful about their race week. I think a lot of times people will say, they'll wake up and be like, well, I probably should pack my bags, but well, the training plan says I need a bike today, so I better do that first. It's very easy in the final days before your race to make decisions that are short-sighted or perhaps don't set you up for the ultimate goal that you want. So keeping that bigger perspective goal in mind of getting the race site and being as rested and happy as possible should then drive all of your other training. Some of my best races have happened after periods of time where I was forced I couldn't train, whether it was new baby or injuries or bike damage. But ultimately, race day at this point in time with less than a week to go has much more to do with your mental state and preparedness than it does with your Wednesday workout. I have never seen, in all my years of racing, I've never seen someone somewhere on the run say, I'm running so fast right now thanks to my Wednesday taper workout. There's nothing that happens there. All the workout you're doing in this last couple weeks, or this last week, sorry, last couple days, is really about reassuring you that everything's going to be okay. So if some of that's all right, we want you to put your bike on the ground, make sure it works, and see if, what your 200 watts is on this new location. Make sure that works for you. But a lot of what you need to do is extraneous to the important core things. You know what your core things are. I've given you a lot of ideas tonight. Collect those, put them together, and make sure you follow that schedule that works for you. And if you find something that works or something that's awesome, please share it with your friends, your training partners, or if you're on the team, share it back with the team. It's always helpful. We can always learn from you and from each other's inputs. All right? All right. Chris says, very helpful. Thank you. It's taken me 12 years to be able to be okay dropping with workouts in that last week. Got a bolt. All right, man. See you, Chris. No worries. I'm happy to share. Again, there's just no workout that gets you more rested. It's all about the final pieces. And more often than not, we're working out or doing something else because we don't want to think about travel or logistics. And that stuff doesn't go away. There's no one else who's going to take care of your car or do the inspection on it or change the fluids before your 5-hour drive. No one else is going to make sure you've got all your bike gear, right? They're assuming you've already done that. And the last thing you want to do is be that guy. I've seen that guy. And the last thing you want to do is be that guy at the Ironman Lake Placid bike mountain line who has somehow traveled with either the wrong cleats or the wrong pedals and is standing at the bike mountain line and he cannot clip in because he has different size cleats for his pedals. I can't remember the brands. But ultimately there was just no way he could clip in, He tried for 5 minutes and then he got off his bike and then took his shoe off and tried to do it. Then he realized what he'd done. He threw his bike on the ground, in front of other people, which was not cool. Then he picked his bike back up and he tried to force it in again. Then he went back into transition to see if he had something else in his bag, like maybe he had other shoes in his transition bag. He did not. So he had to then come back out and ended up biking out with the wrong bike shoes on just to try and ride 112 miles. All because he hadn't taken the time to travel the right way or to test his equipment before race day. So let's make a pinky swear. Let's not be that guy. All right? Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Coach Patrick from Endurance Nation with your Monday, May 12th, 2014 Coaches Chat about race week, how to handle the competing priorities of training and logistics and travel. I am one of the co-founders of Endurance Nation, the world's largest online triathlon team, home of age group triathlon training and the 4 keys of race execution. We are the creators of the first time finish guarantee. We are here to support you on your journey to that finish line. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you want to learn more about us, visit us online at endurancenation.us where you can create a free 7-day trial. See you guys later.